Hey guys, welcome to another installment of the Institute. I'm thankful that you are here with us. This room represents the leadership of Cherish, and God has entrusted us to lead, and that is something that we cannot take lightly. And I know that most of you don't, which I'm really, really thankful for. Like I want us to really understand the importance of leading well and the importance of leading the people that God has entrusted to us to really lead them in the way of just caring for the things that He's given us to care for, which is people primarily, and as well as the things and tools He's given us to use. So today I want to dive a little deeper into this idea of professionalism. We talked about it kind of in broader terms. I want to talk about it today in the areas of written communication. And I hit a bit of it last time we met, but we're going to sit and dig a little deeper. Now, the written communication I'm talking about is twofold. It's our internal communication, which we use to talk to each other, and then it's communication to the people outside of Cherish, whether that's the government or that's other ministries or other partners that we work with, parents. We want to make sure we're communicating clearly when we write. And so we're going to talk a bit about that. Now, I want you to also understand that we're not a local organization anymore. We are actually working on a national level and on an international level. There are documents that you have created that are in the hands of people in other countries. I'm on a call once a month, and there is 9 people in this phone call, and they're all people who are kind of the leading edge. They're working for organizations that are kind of leading in this idea of family reunification. And there's someone from Kenya, America, Tanzania, Australia, South America, Peru, or El Salvador. And then also America, I don't know if I mentioned that. And Nigeria, somewhere in West Africa. So there's 9 people, and I think there's 6 different nations representing those 9. And we have stuff that we start passing around, and that stuff gets passed around to those people who then it gets passed around to those people. So literally, documents that you have created are all over the world, and people are using those documents. And so we want to make sure that those documents are written well for the stuff that goes outside. And then the people that are inside, their worth, their value to make sure that we're making sure that the stuff we send to them is also written well. So I have 7 bullet points that are going to kind of help you a bit with your written communication. And I touched on a few of these our last time together, but I'm going to dive a little deeper, like I said. So the first thing, hope you all got a pen and a paper out so you can make sure you write this down. The first thing is clear and specific language. So when you're communicating, kind of minimize the use of vague words like it or that or he or she. Like call it what it is. Like if you want Eddie to set up the projector, you don't say, hey, can you set it up in the meeting room? That might get a bit confusing because Eddie might not know what you're wanting him to set up and in what room you're wanting him to set it up in. So you want to make sure you use specific words like, Eddie, can you please set up the projector in the computer lab by 9 o'clock on Friday morning? Clear and specific. I mean, you might say something, even in maybe you're typing some notes from a meeting and say, she needs to make an update to it. And you just have that statement next to something. Instead, if you said RISPR needs to update the FSD calendar with the new times for the parent meeting. Boom. Crystal clear. If it isn't clear, here's what happens. We start to waste time, people going back and forth asking for clarity. What did you mean by that? Sorry, I didn't understand that. And so then you sent the message that you wanted them to do something. They then respond to you, okay, I didn't know what it means, so now it goes back to them. Now you're going to have to take the time to now write a message back and to write it the way that it should have been to begin with. And so we've now wasted this back and forth all to bring clarity, where if we would have been clear to begin with, it makes life a lot easier and doesn't waste near the time. And secondly, mistakes are made because people would assume you meant something else. Eddie might assume you meant the sound system and you wanted it set up down in the banda. based on whatever other messages were involved there. So he sets the sound system up in the band and he thinks he's all good. You show up for your meeting and there's no projector. And so now you've wasted the time of having to reset, the time to go find Eddie. Your meeting's probably going to start late, all because we weren't clear and specific. So really be clear and specific. Almost like when you read a message, read it as if you're thinking, Eddie is reading this message. Does Eddie know and understand what I'm saying? Risper's reading this message. Olivia's reading this message. Pastor Brent is reading this message. Will they know and understand what I'm trying to say? So use clear and specific language. The second one is regularly over-communicate using a good tool. Regularly over-communicate using a good tool. So first of all, this idea of over-communication. You can't communicate too much. You just can't. So if you want Eddie to set up the projector, sorry, I'm not picking on you, Eddie, but it's a good example. And on Monday, you send Eddie to set up the projector. You send him a Slack message. It doesn't hurt on Wednesday to just, hey, double checking Eddie about the projector. Doesn't hurt at all. Now, Eddie, if Eddie had already responded to you on Monday, yes, I have it on my calendar. It's going to be set up. Everything is great. Then your communication is probably fine. But if you haven't heard back from Eddie, hit him again. Not hit him again with that communication. Hey, Eddie, it's Wednesday. I asked you Monday. Just following up. Are we going to have it set up on Friday? So if you haven't heard responses from people, that's when you got to keep communicating. Keep communicating until you get a response back that says, I have it. And you feel comfortable. Even if Eddie responded by saying, I have it on Monday, but come Wednesday, you're noticing things are a bit crazy in his department. Maybe he lost someone in his family and he was gone at a burial on a Tuesday or Wednesday before that Friday. Those are great times to just hit it again. Hey, Eddie, I'm so sorry about your loss. Please know that we're here to support you. As far as the projector on Friday, do you need any help with that? Just over communicate and help people to make sure they're hearing what they need to hear. And also, now we go back to the tool. Using a good tool. Figure out from your supervisor what tools should you be using. Because we have Slack, we have WhatsApp, we have a phone call, we have SMS messages, we have Marco Polo, we have Facebook. I'm not sure. There's probably other things as well. You should know from your supervisor, how do we communicate? I think Slack is probably the best general tool for communication. So I think we need to stick to that as much as possible. But there's times when you need to leave an audio message, and maybe WhatsApp is best for that. There's times when maybe you're out in the field, social workers, and it's Facebook Messenger might be the best thing. I'm not sure. But make sure you know and understand as a team, what tool are we going to use? And in what context are we going to use it? And if you don't know, then ask your supervisor. And if your supervisor is not sure, then just keep on encouraging them to make a decision so you know how to best clearly communicate. And also, a thing to understand is when you're dealing with people in other time zones, is that those matter. So with you being 9 hours ahead of America, and you're 9 hours ahead of Texas, you're 11 hours ahead of California. And we have people that work with Cherish in both those states and many other states as well. And so let's say you send a message to someone, at 3:00 on a Tuesday afternoon. You're probably not going to hear back from them right away because they might be sleeping. And then by the time they get the message, and then they read it, and then they answer it, and then you come back to work, it's been a whole day. And so imagine if you did that and you weren't clear and you didn't communicate well, and now they send you a message that says, I don't understand what you're saying. And so now it's a whole nother day because you're going to answer, then they're going to go to bed, you're going to go to bed, everyone wakes up. Now you're 2 days, all because we didn't communicate clearly up front. Now, and as we continue to grow and start talking to people, I regularly talk to people in America. I regularly talk to people in Uganda. I regularly talk to people in the UK. We have our oldest son, Bo, who lives in Australia. And that's just a few of the time zones that I work with. I've also been talking to people down in South America. And so those time zones, I got to think now, what time is it there where they're getting this message? And am I giving them everything that they need? Because I'm going to now go to bed, and then they're going to go to bed, and they're going to wake up, and I'm a day late. Like, you have to think through those things. So that's why the tools are so important, to have the right tools and that you're communicating well. All right, third one. Always communicate with positive intent and assume others are too. So what happens with written communication is we're missing, and Auntie Leah is really good at reminding us all that 90% of our communication is not words. Most of our communication is facial expressions. It's the tone of your voice. It's how you move your hands and how you move your body. Written communication, you have none of that. The only thing you have is words. So what happens is when we communicate, we can sometimes communicate, we're thinking one thing and the person receives it thinking something else. So as the receiver, don't take it from a negative perspective, a negative point of view. Always assume the best. Auntie Leah and I have this phrase, I don't even know where we heard it, but we use it often, is that love always puts the best spin on it. Now that's a very American phrase, but what it means is, if I love you, I'm going to expect the best from you. So if I get a message and I read it and immediately I think, oh wow, is she mad at me? Or I think she's upset. Her attitude doesn't seem very good. Like, I'm not going to take that stance. I'm going to assume the best. And then I might ask you, you seem a bit upset. Have I done something to hurt you? And then we can have a conversation. Like, no, of course not. You didn't do anything to hurt me. I was just communicating this. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, okay. So we always expect the best. Don't read between the lines and decide, some sort of emotional thing. Like, always assume the best from people. We're all on the same team here. All are trying to accomplish the same thing. So start with the positive approach. Now, the person might be upset, and it's their job to tell you that. And if they don't, and you still feel like they might be, then say something to them and have that conversation. Remember, we don't keep quiet at Cherish. We do not keep quiet. All right, the next one. Don't use acronyms. I talked about this in the last one. Auntie Leah loves acronyms, and they are very helpful. They can shorten up your time of typing and your time of speaking, and they're fabulous to use within your department. But if you're using those acronyms or that kind of language is specific to your department outside of your department, it's just confusing to people. Because then what happens is somebody asks something, and then now you have to take time to respond to that person. And where if you just would have said it off the bat, they would have known, and then they could have made their decision and acted upon it because they knew exactly what you were talking about. So I love acronyms, I really do. But it kind of falls under the one of clarity, but I just felt like it was a good extra point to understand that acronyms are great in the context of your team. They're really not so great outside of your team. All right, we have 3 more. Next one is to know your audience. Make sure you're asking who you're writing to, and then give them what they need. So if you're writing to me, you might be giving me a different background than if you're writing to your supervisor, because I'm going to need more information than they need, because they already are working with you and know the information. So if you're coming to me for something, which is fabulous, make sure you're giving me enough background and information to make sure I understand. So always be thinking, who's receiving this? If you're developing a document for a parent and you read through that, can that parent understand what you're saying? Or are you using words and phrases that are too advanced for that particular parent? Or if you're talking to a parent and this parent knows English well, very clever, then speak to language that speaks to that. So make sure you know your audience. Don't give them, so you need to give them the info they need, but also don't give them info they don't need and might not want. Just give people the information that they need. Another thing about knowing your audience, that this is kind of a little offshoot one, photos are fabulous. They communicate very, very well. But just also know that photos can be data eaters. They can chew up your data quickly. So if you're going to take a picture of something, fabulous. But you probably don't need to send 3 pictures of the same thing from different angles. Just be thinking, because you send the photos, it costs data for you to upload the photo. And then for everyone who downloads the photo, it's going to require data. Video's the same way. Video takes money to upload it, takes money to download it. So make sure when you send those things, they are very efficient communicators. It would take you so many words to say what you can say in a picture, but just make sure you're sending that picture to the right person to communicate the right thing, and don't send 12 of them. If that person needs another picture, or can you send me that again from a different angle, then they'll probably ask. All right, the next one is proofread. What that means is double check your work. After you write something, read it. Does it make sense? And if it's not done well, then edit. There's edit buttons on everything. We talked about spell check. Spell check that your communication. You want to make sure you're communicating clearly and professionally, because that's what shows value to the person who's receiving that. So we talked about that last week. We don't need to go into that anymore. And then the last one is to be concise. So at the end of your message, you need to make sure that you have clearly stated the issue and that you've clearly told them what you want them to do. The worst is when you get a big long message and all this information and you're thinking, I'm not sure what they want from me. I don't know what question they want answered. I don't know what action they want from me. So spell all of that out. Give them all the detail you want to give them. And then at the end say, okay, here's the issue. I want to boil the issue down to a short thing so you know the issue in I should be able to say the issue in 60 seconds or less. And if you can't say the issue in 60 seconds or less, then you haven't properly thought through the issue well enough yourself. And then after that issue, then you need to be able to tell them, this is what I need you to do. So Eddie, we got a teacher training setting up. We got a teacher training thing, and we're doing it over in the CLC building, and these people are going to be there, and we're going to communicate this, and 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 so if you could just set some stuff up, boom. Well, you've told them about, you got a program, you've told them you need some stuff set up, but you haven't told them what. Very clearly, I need you to set up this, pick up this, put this here, or whatever you need, just very, very clearly. So, concise. What's the issue, and what do you need them to do? All right, now I have 3 things for you to talk about in a small group. The first one is this. Pick 2 of the things above that you're going to focus on this week, and tell the group what those 2 things are. Because when you look at all these, sometimes I can't remember all that. But if you can look and say, all right, I picked these 2 things. I want to make sure that I figure out what tool we're using, so I'm going to figure that out. And then secondly, I'm going to make sure I proofread my work. Those are the 2 things you'll focus on this week. And then share that with your group. Then I want you to answer these 2 questions. First one is, what are the negative effects of poor communication? Talk about that as a group. And then what are the positive effects of good communication? And talk about those as a group. All right, thanks for listening. Thanks for being here with us. And I think as we just continue to kind of grow, some of these things will be like this, where there's going to be some real easy, quick things that are just about tools that we work with. And other times there'll be a little bigger or broader subjects, but we're going to talk about all kinds of things. And I'm also going to start to address some of the things that you said you wanted to address as well. All right, have a great day and a great evening. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.